On the coast of Indonesia, a massive, brand-new city is literally rising up from the sea. It's a symbol of the future, promising jobs and modern homes. But for the fishing village that has been there for generations, well, that promise came at a truly devastating cost. This is the story of what happens when one person's idea of progress completely erases someone else's entire world.
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? What actually happens when the so-called march of progress just paves over a whole way of life? We're about to take a close look at how this exact conflict played out for the fishing community of Kohod village.
And this is where we run into a huge paradox. You've got this enormous construction project on one side, which looks like a shining example of economic growth. But for the people who actually lived there, that progress was the beginning of the end.
You have to picture it. For generations, life in Kohod village moved with the rhythm of the tides. This was so much more than a job. It was their whole identity, a really deep generational connection to the sea, where every skill, every story was passed down from parent to child.
So, what did that life really look like before everything changed? I mean, to really get a sense of what was lost, we have to first understand what was there. And what was there was a culture built from the ground up on self-sufficiency.
Life was remarkably self-sufficient. They used simple nets and traps called jaring and bubu and drew their living right from the sea and from these coastal fish ponds, which are known locally as tambak. But this wasn't just about putting food on the table. It was the absolute foundation of their community, a really tight-knit culture built on helping each other out with the ocean at the very center of it all.
And then, the concrete wave arrived. A massive development project called PIC 2, spearheaded by a developer named PT Indica PUC 2, started to completely transform the coastline. And in doing so, it transformed the entire existence of the Kohod community. And the change was, well, it was absolute. Just look at the contrast here. On one side, you have fish ponds, open access to the sea. And on the other, housing estates and business parks. A rich fisherman culture just gives way to modern infrastructure. Their traditional homes and open coastline were replaced by relocated communities and a sea that was suddenly closed off to them. Their world was literally paved over.
So how do you even begin to measure a loss this big? I mean, it goes so far beyond just money. The researchers in this study used a really interesting framework called livelihood capitals. It's a way of looking at all the different kinds of assets a community needs to survive and thrive.
So the whole idea is that a community's true wealth isn't just cash in the bank. It's made up of 5 key things: natural capital, which is what the environment gives you; financial capital, your income; social capital, your community networks; physical capital, infrastructure; and human capital, your skills and knowledge. Let's break down how this development project hit every single one.
Okay, so first up, their natural capital was just devastated. The land reclamation for all the construction completely damaged the marine ecosystem they relied on. And then came the knockout blow. Their access to the sea, the very source of their life and livelihood, was just gone, cut off.
And of course, once the natural resources disappeared, what do you think happened next? Yep, their financial capital completely collapsed. The daily income that hundreds of families depended on from fishing and working those fish ponds just vanished. The jobs were gone, basically overnight, leaving them with no way to support their families. And then you have the social impact. As people were relocated, scattered around, the community itself just started to fall apart. Neighbors who had leaned on each other for generations were suddenly separated. It just tore apart that social fabric, that culture of mutual help and shared identity that was so crucial for their resilience. Now, when you look at the data the researchers collected, it becomes crystal clear. This chart shows what they called a negative impact score, basically how much each of these things contributed to the community's hardship. And while the social disruption was a serious problem, you can see the 2 biggest drivers, by far, were the direct economic loss and the environmental damage. That's what really pushed these families to the breaking point.
Okay, so that's the problem. It's pretty bleak. But the story doesn't end there. The research doesn't just point out what went wrong, it actually proposes some really clear strategies for survival and adaptation. It offers a potential path forward.
So, the path to recovery they laid out is pretty comprehensive. It starts by tackling the 2 biggest problems head-on: the economy and the environment. That means getting capital to folks to start new businesses and beginning ecological restoration, like replanting mangroves. From there, it's all about rebuilding that social structure by empowering local co-ops and making sure any future policies are actually fair. And finally, you have to look forward
by giving people training for new kinds of jobs.
So when you take a step back and look at the whole picture, what's the big takeaway? The story of Kohod village isn't just about one community on the Indonesian coast. It's a really powerful lesson that should make all of us stop and ask what we really mean when we use the word progress.
The researchers really hit the nail on the head with this final thought, and it's the core of this whole story. It's a powerful reminder that development and modernization aren't automatically good things if they leave a trail of injustice in their wake. Real progress has to lift people up, not just erase them.
And that leaves us with a really big, critical question to think about. As our cities all over the world keep expanding and modernizing, how do we make sure that growth actually includes everyone? How can we possibly build a future that creates new opportunities without destroying the lives and the heritage of the communities that are already there?